Just told you, but I didn't even cue you, Brian. We're on. Golden Black
There you go.
Live. Special December edition, I guess, because this will be our only December show. But we have a good show today. Not only Brian Newbert to join us, we have a big weekend in Purdue football recruiting, and then also Ricardo Allen will join us for segment 2. Stacy will join us as well, and then Kyle, Brian, and myself will take us home in segment 3. But Brian, we'll get started. A lot to talk about in the football recruiting end, and also obviously just got back from men's basketball. Anything exciting going on with the Boilermakers after that big win over Boston College?
Same old. I think, I think the players and the coaches are a lot like probably fans are right now, where you hope the Boston College game was some sort of turning point. I mean, that was their most consistent game in terms of putting two halves together, probably of the season, against a notable opponent in Florida. I mean, I've never seen anything like Florida, where a team 3 times in 4 days is one team one half and an entirely different team the next half. I've never seen anything like that. As Painter said yesterday, Purdue didn't play a bad game in Florida. They played 3 bad halves and 3 good halves, and it ended up with a 1-2 record, a very disappointing 1-2 record.
Yeah, well, how this show works, if you're new, and that is you can chat us your questions. You can email them to us, too, or put them in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Obviously, you want to recognize our sponsors, and that, of course, is Hilton Garden Inn. When tomorrow's a big day, stay at HGI tonight. Christy Kuntz and the gang has done a great job down there, and one of the great places to stay in Lafayette and West Lafayette. And, of course, State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. Basham Reynolds, John Basham, about as big a Boilermaker fan as you're going to find. A pretty good football player in his own right, and we always enjoy talking football with John and basketball. And then, of course, Triple X on the hill but on the level. Greg and Carrie Ayersman we've had a show already at their place, and we enjoy their desire to be steeped in Purdue traditions, and that certainly is the case with the folks at Triple X and Route 66. Okay, Brian, obviously we'll talk some basketball as we get questions as well, but just a huge recruiting weekend, 15, 16, I don't know what's the number of guys that we think are here this weekend for Coach Darrell Hazel and visiting campus. I'm
going with near 20, just because there's at least one guy who was possible to come. I don't think he's coming. California JUCO offensive tackle A.J. Allen. I guess there was still a remote possibility as of yesterday he was coming. I don't think he is, but without him, I guess I'd put the number at 17, 18, something like that. Obviously a very big weekend on sheer numbers alone. And when you bring in that many guys, that obviously means that this weekend is going to factor heavily into the recruiting class Purdue is ultimately going to sign. And I'm noticing now you can see my coffee in the background. So I apologize for that. But Purdue should be poised to get a bunch of commitments this weekend, just based on those sheer numbers alone. Obviously, when you have 18 kids coming to your campus this late in the process, it's getting close to decision time for a lot of these guys. And oftentimes when you bring in visitors this late, they're kind of warmed up, like said coffee, to probably make a decision sooner rather than later. So I would expect this to be a very, very busy weekend. I don't know if I can tell you this kid's going to commit, this kid's going to commit, and this kid's going to commit. But again, the sheer numbers alone say Purdue's probably poised to get a bunch of them here this weekend. Bunch meaning, and they have, what's the count now, 9 in the class, 10 in the class, 10. And Darrell Hazel has said that number they'd like to get it to that 20 range maybe by the time they're done. What all does that mean? Is that still a realistic number at this point? Yeah. I think you've got 10 now. The possibility is certainly there. You could get upwards of a half a dozen this weekend. Again, I don't know if I can say this kid, and this kid are all going to commit. I think there are a couple guys I could speculate on and say Purdue's got a great chance to close the door on this one, and this one. But let's say for argument's sake you get 4 now, which you can entirely get even more than that. You can entirely get less than that. Let's say you get 4 now. That puts you at 14 when you're trying to get to 20. A lot of these guys, too, if they don't commit this weekend, they're still guys Purdue is going to maintain a presence with and could get down the line. So let's say, for argument's sake, Purdue out of this weekend eventually gets 7 of these guys, which I think is perfectly reasonable. That's the majority of the remainder of your class right now. This is the only weekend Purdue is going to host visits in December. You've got 3 weekends in January to bring in any late guys. Obviously, things in recruiting are so fluid. When you look at last year alone, Purdue some of the guys Darrell Hazel and his staff recruited after they got the job were recruited in January, and a lot of them were the products of instability in the coaching ranks. Dan Monteroso basically dropped by Boston College. D'Angelo Yancey, who might have been Purdue's best offensive player this year, dropped by Kentucky. Guys come open late as coaching changes get made. So there's going to be a much larger pool of recruits for Purdue to recruit later than there are now. So even if Purdue is able to hit a home run this weekend and get upwards of double digits of these guys, I don't know if you necessarily want to fill up right away. Obviously, Purdue is going to have to make some calls here this weekend if it really hits a home run and a bunch of these guys say they want to come. If they all play the same positions, you can't take all of them, obviously. So at some point in time, you have to pick and choose, establish a hierarchy. I'd imagine there probably is one in place already, but even if Purdue can finish off this class this weekend, I don't know if you necessarily want to.
All right, comment from a confused boiler. He says, why Hayes? Seems like a Hunt clone, just taller and not as fast. Where is Purdue going to get that tough inside runner / blocker? The freshman, JUCO, or where?
I have never seen Deshaun Hayes play, so I can't comment on his ability. He may very well be that between the tackles runner. I think the sheer fact Purdue is recruiting him tells you that they're not entirely satisfied with their running back play and their running game in general. And when you look at the numbers this season, I think that's pretty justified, because Purdue had one of the worst running games in all of college football this year, when the running game was maybe the most important thing Purdue needed to do to be successful offensively this season. So I think all options are on the table to improve that running game. But the most important part of it, I think, is fixing that offensive line.
Okay, getting some questions here from Boston Boiler. Do you have an estimate of how many JUCOs Purdue could expect to come in this class? Is that, I mean, it's a good, anybody's guess, I suppose, from that standpoint.
I think they would like 2 junior college offensive tackles. I think that's the high end. I think that's ambitious on their part, because you don't want to take guys just to take them. You want to take guys you know can play right away, because there is an open wound of a need there on the depth chart. So I think, let's say your best case scenario, you can get 2 junior college offensive tackles, guys you feel like you can play right away. Purdue has pretty seriously recruited junior college tight ends. I'm not sure that's the same need now it was back a couple of months ago, because Gabe Holmes is coming back. Obviously, you need a tight end. I don't know if you need a junior college tight end. And when I say need, there's a difference between want and need. I also think, obviously, they've recruited running backs too. That might be a position, though, given your numbers at running back, and in the context of what I just said about wanting to improve the running game, I don't know if you need a JC running back as much as if you can get a home run guy, you'll take that guy. But I don't know if you're going to recruit one no matter what. So I guess upwards of 4, I would think.
Yeah, and again, historically, and that does not mean anything for this year, it's been tough it's tough for schools like Purdue. Sometimes you look at how many junior college linemen, offensive linemen especially, over the years that have made huge impacts, and that number is pretty small. I mean, it's tough. It's tough for guys to come in and do that, depending on what happens. But it's not always easy to have those guys come in and be big time players right away. But that's what Purdue needs. There is space for those guys and time for those guys to play.
Yeah, no, especially on the offensive line. There's a reason. I don't know what exactly it is, but Purdue has never really recruited junior college offensive linemen. They recruited Devin Smith a couple years ago. They recruited Aaron Starnes way back when. And, obviously Devin
Smith. The guys in the mid-2000s are really defensive linemen that some of them ended up playing some.
I think it's easier to recruit defensive JUCOs and skill position guys on offense than it is recruit linemen. Joe Tiller used to say it would take a long time for offensive linemen, to learn systems enough to get up and go. Right away. I know when Purdue recruits offensive tackles from the junior college ranks this year, they're going to want guys who can come mid-year. That's not entirely realistic that you're going to expect, if you get both of those guys to be mid-years, but that's certainly what you'd prefer, because you'd like to have some time for them to learn before they have to actually play.
All right. Comment from Pete. In your opinion, what is the most important recruit Purdue needs to commit that is coming this weekend? I know it's probably a hard question to answer, but
yeah, if you're talking about just this weekend alone, I think Purdue's put a lot of time into Rennell Rent from St. Louis, who's a defensive lineman. Purdue really needs defensive linemen the rest of the way. Purdue is very, very eager to recruit more linebackers. I don't know if that was the case going into this season, but it certainly is now. And they have a kid coming in from Maryland, Juwan Bentley, who is probably the guy this weekend Purdue would do cartwheels over if they could get. They've already got Jalen Robinson committed, obviously, so the linebacker they really, really wanted going into recruiting has already committed, and I don't think you have anything to worry about with him. But obviously, if you watched Purdue this season, you understand how pressing a need linebacker is right now. So I think things have changed a little bit. Purdue may be going to a little more 3-4 stuff too. So it's not like you might only be putting three linebackers on the field anymore. So Purdue's looking for more numbers there, and Juwan Bentley is a very good one.
Comment from Billy: do you think going 1-11 has an impact on the amount of JUCOs that Daryl Hazel's bringing in?
I think Purdue wants to win now, and I think they have severe deficiencies, as 1-11 illustrates. And I think sometimes the best thing to do in situations like that, not the ideal thing to do in situations like that, is to go out and get a couple Band-Aids to put over your wounds. And right now, Purdue has serious wounds that they're trying to find bandages to cover up.
Yeah, and it's kind of a similar question, in terms of, the impact. And Daryl Hazel's talk in broad terms about the record. And of course, you can expect him to say, that we have guys that we have guys that are enthusiastic about coming here and know that they may be able to play. But the 1-11 record, overblown, or does it? How big of an impact do you see it on the trail when you're talking to guys? Is it even something that people talk about that much?
Well, something else I should also add before about the offensive line is Purdue's got good young pieces on offense. We think Danny Etling will get better. All the wide receivers he played this year were freshmen. A lot of those running backs are coming back next year. In the context of junior college recruiting, if they can get a couple offensive linemen just to make that offensive line a little bit more competitive, great. Now, to answer your question, whether 1-11 affects them in recruiting, probably, in some small way. Obviously, recruits want to be part of a winner, but you know what else recruits want to do? They want to be able to play. And when you're 1-11, you can credibly go to every single one of them, maybe with the exception of certain positions, and say, look, we need help, and you can come in and play, especially junior college guys. The number one thing junior college players typically look at is playing time. You've only got 2 years. You have to make the most of those 2 years. You got to get on the field. So Purdue, at the positions it's recruiting JUCOs, can say, there's no better opportunity for you, junior college offensive tackle, than to come here.
All right. Now, we do know somebody that just entered the studio. We could use another year of eligibility, and he'd probably take it. Ricardo Allen will be joining us in segment 2, and we look forward to talking to him. And, it will be an interesting comment about Denzel Ward, obviously one of the high-profile early commits from the Chicago area. Any updates on him? And I know that's been a weekly saga, at least for those that stress over this stuff on that basis. But anything new from your perspective there?
If you ask me February 5th or whatever the day before signing day
Which is what you said all along.
I'll probably have a better. I said from day one, this one's going the wire. I think this is a recruit who enjoys the attention a little bit. I think he's been very open, more open than most recruits who are being recruited when they're committed to another school about what's going on in recruiting. I think there are some things tying him to Purdue, obviously. He acts like he's already part of the team. So I think there's a very strong bond there. But obviously he's allowing himself to continue to be recruited by damn near anybody who wants to call him, it seems like. So anytime you're in a situation like that at the start of December, I think you have to consider all your options if you're Purdue, and make sure you aren't counting on somebody you're not sure you can count on.
You look at this, and you actually have seen David Blau in person last summer when you were down there covering some basketball. I had a chance to see him. The question still, and it's a question that you always get on some of the top guys in your class. Is he still solid? We have nothing to
nothing to worry about. He actually signs in like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so.
and what talk about just him as a person. You got a chance to meet him and watch him a little bit in practice. But what kind of personalities he bring to this program?
He's a quarterback from Texas. That's the best way to describe him. All those guys, they kind of live for football. They kind of really are leaders. They take the game very seriously. I think he's kind of straight out of Central Casting, I guess, from a quarterback intangible standpoint. Now, obviously, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but Purdue's had some success with small quarterbacks from Texas before, not making any comparisons there. But sometimes when guys are undersized, as the guy sitting to my right here can probably attest, they come to college with a chip on their shoulder, and that makes them a lot better than they might ordinarily be. I think he's going to be a very highly motivated guy. I think football in Texas is a very big deal, and guys from that state, especially from the Dallas area where he's from, come to college pretty advanced just because things are taken so seriously there. And he's been part of so much high-profile stuff in the summers. springs and summers, and yeah, obviously getting an early start at Purdue is going to help him even more.
Okay, a question then. How about Applefield, and who are the defensive line recruits? I'm not sure exactly what he's getting at, but talk about it, what you know there in terms of any of the guys in the defensive line that they're really looking at.
Marcus Applefield is the offensive tackle
Right.
from Weeki Wachee, Florida.
Right.
I just like saying that. So
Yeah. And you say it well.
he's going to be a mid-year enrollment, so his clock's ticking here. He's going to have to decide soon. I know he officially visits Rutgers this weekend. He came to Purdue for the Iowa game, I believe. So he's already made his official. I know Vanderbilt's still in the running there. I think that one's going to be tough for Purdue. But as I said before, you know, they've got this opening on the offensive line where they can promise not necessarily early playing time on the offensive line, but a chance to be part of, you know, helping to fix a problem. There's going to be an opportunity there to be a very prominent player, maybe more so than at other schools. I think he's bonded a little bit with some of the guys he was around on his visit, some of the existing Purdue commitments. There's something drawing with Purdue because he took an official visit to Purdue when he hadn't been to Purdue before, and it was the only school that he hadn't visited prior that he chose to take an official to. So he likes something about Purdue. I just think there's a good amount of competition for him, and that one's going to be kind of difficult. I think from a defensive line standpoint, you just mentioned, I think they've got a defensive tackle in this weekend, Kewan Jones. I think they have a great chance to get. He's down to Purdue and Iowa State, and I think he's really liked Purdue for a long time. Purdue doesn't have any defensive tackles yet, I don't believe. I'm not looking at the list right now. Rennell Wren, obviously, is a guy who I mentioned before. They've recruited for a very long time, has some very good schools in on him. I think they've got a great shot there. They have ever since the day they got involved with him, had him on an unofficial in the summer. I think those right now are two of the guys you really, really look at. They've recruited someone named Jaleel Fields, another defensive tackle. But he's deciding pretty soon, and he hasn't even scheduled a visit to Purdue yet. So if you do the math there, you realize that I don't think they've got a very good shot at him.
All right. Well, we're going to let Brian come up for air, so to speak, and take a break as we bring in Ricardo Allen here in the next segment. Brian will join us in segment 3 as well. We'll finish up with some of the recruiting questions and talk a little bit more about basketball. We think Kyle Charters will also join us for segment 3. We'll hit some football there. So we very much look forward to our next segment as well. Not that we didn't look forward to Brian. Brian did a great job and very good stuff. We'll look forward to having Ricardo Allen and Stacey Clarity join us here shortly. Stay put, and we'll see you in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.
Purdue students, find your home away from home with Basham Rentals. Trusted for 3 generations to provide quality student housing. We are now leasing for next year, so call us to learn about our apartments and townhomes, all located at the edge of campus. We're eager to share information on our many units, supported by 24-hour maintenance. Basham Rentals. Call us at 743-8367 or look for us online at mybashamrentals.com or boilerapartments.com. Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
Good driver? We've got a discount for that and a lot more. See State Farm agent Trent Johnson to make sure you get all the discounts you deserve on your car insurance. Saving you money? It's just part of being there. Call or visit Trent today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
More than the players on the field. More than coaches on the sidelines. More than the fans in the stands. More than just scores at the end of the night. It's the action, the stories, the heroes. It's the Friday Night Frenzy. It's the Friday Night Frenzy, and it's only on News 18. High school football from where you live.
Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. I always say this, and I sound stupid, but I'll say it again. We get better looking now, and that's not a bang on Brian. It's just that Ricardo and Stacy add a lot to the set here. Ricardo, okay, she's pointing. Welcome to the show, Ricardo Allen.
Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you here, and I know you said you're done with your finals, so it's life is at least good in the short term. But it's good to be, and still have a little bit left of school to do the next semester. But tell us what's keeping you busy right now. I mean, we're going to talk training. We're going to talk about this past season. But what's on your focus here for the next few weeks?
Just to get my body back healthy. The season just wrapping up, so you don't want to jump right back into training really fast. So right now I'm just rehabbing, trying to get healthy, get my nutrition down. I was eating a little funny during the season, but right now I just try to get my nutrition back on point and just get ready to go with this process I have in front of me.
Yeah.
You don't eat anything bad for you, do you?
No, I have a bad thing. I like chips every now and then, so that's like my bad snack.
They're your weakness, potato chips?
Yes.
Like the salty?
I like barbecue.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now somebody's asking a question about his food consumption here, so I don't know. Maybe it's a friend of yours, but he said, comment about what is your favorite restaurant at Purdue, or you can use that as a broad so you don't necessarily have to single anybody out. But what kind of food do you like when you get a chance to visit places around town?
I don't eat any beef and pork at all, so that's kind of out of the question. So my favorite place to go to is Hunter's Pub.
Really?
I love that place too.
Yeah.
They have a really good blackened chicken sandwich that I like.
Yeah. And when you are, do you find that from a nutrition standpoint, having to be able to, because training table and obviously things that you get there, they have to make special provisions for you, or do you always be able to find enough to get yourself full up, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm not a very picky person, and I don't like making people do more than what they have to. So I would just find whatever they have in there. If they don't have any chicken or fish for me for the night, I'll just go home and make my own meat with it. So majority of the time I just go in there, I make me a salad, and most of the food is pretty good, so it's always easy to find stuff.
Go ahead.
You mentioned rehab. How are you and how were you then? Because we would watch you in practice and you go as hard as you can all the time, but you could see after you'd run, cover a guy in a deep route, you'd maybe limp a little bit, right? I mean, we can say that now.
Yeah, I would limp every now and then.
Yeah.
I was playing on very weak ankles, and I never had the chance to actually recover because I was hurt one game, and then next week I'm still practicing because it's down to the wire. It's down to your last couple of minutes playing as a Purdue Boilermaker. You want to make the most of it all, so I would just try to fight through, rehab every day, and go whenever I can. And right now I'm feeling much better. I've had a week off now, and I've been in there every day, twice a day, and I'm getting much stronger.
You can relate, I'm sure, to the youth of this football team and some of the inexperience, and you came in as a very seasoned guy. Talk about the injuries and how you would have looked at them as a freshman and sophomore. I mean, was it a maturing process? I mean, you had bumps and bruises, I'm sure, throughout your career, but it takes a lot to be able to do what you did this year and be able to play through them. Is that truly a function of getting older and getting more experience, or is it a mindset?
It's kind of both. You have to be mature. Like once you're a freshman and things like that, once you get hurt, you think about it. You have so many people in your ear. You have your family in your ear. You have the coaches want to tell you to play, but your family's probably telling you not to play. And one of the biggest things is you have time on your side. And as a freshman and sophomore, you have years to come. But as a junior and senior, you're down to your wire, and you have to get in there. You have to rehab. You have more bumps and bruises because you've been getting beat up for more years, and you're trying to get out there because you're trying to make something of yourself. You're trying to keep fighting because you're the leaders of the team, and you need to be one of the guys on the field.
Yeah.
I could talk to you this whole time, but this is not the point of the show. So we've had quite a few questions already. Someone, who is this? Billy, which I'm assuming his name is Billy.
William,
we never know.
probably, but yeah.
We're going to call him that. He says that your interviews really resonate with fans because of your demeanor and your honesty. After your long, long professional career, will you come back to coach?
Oh, that's what I'm coming. I want to be a offensive coordinator, which is
It's an
very
easy
crazy.
job.
It's not.
No, it's not.
But the thing is, I kind of know the tricks to trades of defense, and I'm very good at like reading defense. And it's kind of different because I've played. Like I put out a challenge on NCAA and things like that.
Yeah.
The video game, and I haven't lost yet because I can tend to see what the people are doing on defense. And I kind of take that as like some of my coaching points. I would love to be a wide receiver coach.
Yeah.
Because I know the tricks of trade of a corner, and I think that'll make my job easier. And yes, I really, that's like one of my biggest things. I want to come back and coach.
Yeah. And you have it, you've obviously, in some of the challenges certainly of your career at Purdue has been, you had to deal with having two different coaching staffs and different position coaches all the time. But talk about that and maybe what you took from that, and the fact that with Coach Hope in the first 3 years and that staff, but then that big change for a senior year. That wasn't an easy thing. But talk about maybe what you learned from that.
As a defensive player here at Purdue, ever since I've been here, I think we have 4 defensive coordinators.
Right.
So every year on the defense, we have had a different coach. And yes, it's tough, but it also makes you a better, smarter player. You have different things to bring out during the game. Yes, it might be hard for some people who are just getting used to what's going on, but it also makes you smarter. You know what more coaches would like to see. You know if they're learning this technique that you keep doing, you always have a backup technique that you can change up to. And you tend to learn how to bait people into doing things they don't want to. And it's been very tough because we never really got to get used to somebody, but it also was for the better, and it made me smarter.
That has a lot to do with performance, right? I mean, we've talked, about the last 2 years. This defense statistically has been some of the worst that Purdue has ever had. But how much then of that is, having new guys kind of each and every year?
I think it takes a part on it because it's very tough if you're just learning like what to really do with something, and they just keep changing it up for you. Like they'll teach you one technique and they want you to do this, and you're just getting really good at it, and then they change the whole scheme for you. And that's very tough because going out in the game, sometimes you see some things that you've never seen before, and you're going to make bad plays on it. You might not make the play that you would have made if you was running the other defense.
Yeah, that makes for a challenge. You've had coaches. Do you prefer coaches? And Coach Haycock seems to be somewhat vocal, and yet you have guys that. I mean, what kind of coach are you going to be? Do you like guys that are vocal and are yellers all the time? And is that to help you focus, or what kind of coach do you think you'll be from that standpoint? What kind of coach do you prefer to play for?
My favorite coach was Coach Anarumo and Coach Blue. I had like 2 coaches my freshman and sophomore year. And Coach Anarumo was a genius. He was so smart. He knew everything. And then we had Coach Blue Adams, who was the yeller. Everything like Coach A would tell you to do something, and if you didn't do it right, Coach Blue was the one that always was in your ear telling you, you're not doing it right, you're not good enough, and things like that. I'm the type of person that I always want somebody to tell me that I'm not doing good enough. I need to keep doing better because it always keeps that chip on your shoulder. It always keeps you hungry for something. It makes you go home and think about, like, am I not good enough? Like, it makes you still work, and that's the kind of coach that I like. I feel like with the players, you have to learn what type of coach you can be. And some players you can yell at and they do better, and some players you have to be a little softer with. And I don't want to say softer, but you have to be
Gotta
nicer
figure-
to them.
yeah.
Yep. You were not going to be a yeller, though, right? I don't see you as a yeller. Would you be a yeller?
I don't think I'd be a yeller, but I would try to get the best out of my players all I can.
Who's your, in talking about the other side, we always kind of ask try to figure out in these exit interviews, which is I think one of the we enjoy doing on the site, and Stacy and Kyle will be doing those here in the next few weeks, and have already have some on the site. But talk about there was a question about what the best receiver you've seen in your time at Purdue, but then also some of the guys that I always like to say the pick to click, or who's coming up that may surprise some people down the road.
The best receiver I've seen since I've been here is probably Keith Smith.
Yeah.
He was really good. He was a smart guy, but he played safety, I think, before
Yeah.
I got here. So that's
There you
kind of
go.
like my transition too. Like I want to be off of the court. See,
Yeah.
and he just, once he got out there, he would sit there and he would read, and he knew exactly where to go. He never took false steps, and he never didn't know what coverage you were in when he was going into his route. He wasn't the fastest guy around. He wasn't the biggest or strongest, but he always tended to beat people and make big plays.
Yeah, and Keith was a guy also who played some quarterback too, and I think when he came in as well, so that had something probably to do. How about who's some of the guys in the offense now, the young guys that really impressed you from the receiving end? And obviously there's a stable of them.
One of my favorite guys, he's not a big flashy guy. He's not the strongest or fastest, but he's kind of like Keith Smith to me, Cameron Posey.
Yeah.
He always just tends to do the right thing. He doesn't miss his blocks. He always knows his assignment, and in one-on-ones, he's like one of the toughest people for me to guard for some reason. He's one of those people that knows what type of defensive back he's going up against. He's not just going to run every route the same. He knows this DB might backpedal fast, or this corner might be aggressive on this route. He's a very smart guy, and he's only a redshirt freshman. I think he's going to be one of the standout players.
And made some big plays this year at
What,
times.
what are the dynamics just generally on a team, but I guess especially on a team that struggles when you have the offense isn't scoring enough points, which these are facts. I'm not,
Yeah.
okay. And the defense is allowing too many points. Like, how do you stay together as a team instead of saying, you guys got to score more, and then they say, well, you have to stop people? I mean, was that a kind of tough thing to kind of do this year or handle?
It's always the tough part, but that's when I feel like the seniors and the captains have to make a big part, because you have that senior leader and you have that defensive leader, and maybe sometimes we're not holding enough for the offense to keep up, and maybe sometimes they're not scoring enough for us to be off the field. So you have to just, I don't know, play both sides. You have to try to do whatever you can control. Don't worry about the things that you can't control. So if you start worrying about they're not completing passes over there, you're on the field too much, that's when you're going to start doing bad. And if they worry about us not stopping people, they're not going to be doing their job. So that's one of my biggest things. You got to worry about the things that you can control. You can control doing your job, and you can control doing your job to your best ability, and not worry about what everybody else is doing.
That sounds good, and I'm sure that it's true in some respects. But for you personally, as a guy who did his job all the time and did have a really good career and a good season, you're one of 11. So is it more frustrating then when you know you're going out there and you're doing the studying you need to do and you're working out and you're doing all the extra stuff, but then you come out there and maybe don't see that from everybody? But then you're a leader too, and so it would seem like a really odd kind of dynamic that you would have to handle.
It's very tough, because the transition from high school to college is, my high school was we was a powerhouse, and we took pride in everything that we did, and everybody who was there for football. And then, we get here, and sometimes you might have people who can't keep up with what the coach is trying to get past to them. You can't put as much pressure on some players. You might have to just give them one job, but you have to put more pressure on somebody else to do some things, and that's how it was sometimes. And I think we have very good young players that will be able to keep up and will be able to step up and do their things in the future, and I think this program is on the uprise.
How did you deal with that, and you learn everything and learn something in every season, I'm sure. I mean, you had the reinforcement in years 2 and 3, maybe not winning as much as you want, but you won enough to go to bowl games. This year you didn't have the positive reinforcement throughout the course of the year. How did you keep yourself mentally focused on moving ahead and trying to also see, for a lot of Purdue fans, they want to see those sprouts growing now to where this is going to get better. Are you starting to see that as well?
Yeah, I'm starting to see a lot of it. like I said, that freshman offense is going to be one of the best offenses in the country. As you can see, as some of the teams we have played from past years, we beat those teams, but they were very young. And now you look at Ohio State, who was a very young team for a couple years, and maybe they wasn't beating as many people as they should have. And now look at them, it's tough for people to even stay in the stadium with them. And I just see that this team and this offense and that defensive line and the defense they're very young, and they're just going to keep growing and just get better. And I know as a senior, maybe I did want to win more, but sometimes it comes to a time that you have to rebuild, and that's what we're doing. We're rebuilding right now, and for the better of the future, the better of Purdue.
I kind of know the answer to this, but you've said before that the losses were always tough for you personally, and you didn't like to shake hands and stuff. Did you ever resign yourself to the fact, though, that this team just wasn't going to win games? I mean, because when you would come in and, like, post-game, I wanted you to be like, I'm ticked off. You know what I mean? I'm embarrassed. We're losing. But you seem like you kind of stayed level.
Yeah.
Did you ever kind of let yourself get ticked off, or did you really stay level? The way you were with us in postgame, is that really how you were feeling?
Not all the time.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
You gotta when the camera's around and things like that, you gotta stay level-headed.
Yeah.
You don't never want somebody to think that you're something that you're not. And I'm not a hothead, and
Yeah.
I don't go out and I don't just down talk people, and I don't just blow up on things that not going my way. But
Right.
yeah, it bothers me a lot, and it's tough sometimes to sleep at night. And I sit there and I watch those games 4 and 5 times before I go to sleep, and I'm up until 3 or 4 o'clock at night, and it bothers me a lot, and it used to kill my insides. I can feel my insides burning, but you just gotta keep level, and you just gotta. My coach, I always hear Coach Blue. He always say, just keep your head down and keep grinding until I tell you to come up, and I don't know what that meant, but it always sounds good. And when he used to tell me that, I just kept working.
Yeah.
And when we talked about not having that reinforcement of winning each week, but being able to kind of grind through it. You look back at when you watch tape after a game, or watch even if you're watching on a replay on your DVR after a game. Do you see it as, boy, it's as simple as if we just could get position better? Or is it as much of that as anything else, you think, from the defensive side? Is it a technique issue? I mean, is it an experience issue as much as anything?
The thing that used to kill me the most was, like, if somebody physically got beat one play, it's going to happen. Like, if you physically, like, somebody just happens to knock you down and you just happen to miss a tackle or something like that, that wouldn't bother me at all, because that's football, and if that's not happening to you, you're not playing the right football. But the parts that kills me is when our coaches who did a great job of getting us ready for every game. And I can tell you, Coach Heacock was one of the smartest. Coach Heacock and Coach Hudson was one of the smartest coaches I'd have been around. And they tend to knew exactly, like, I can tell you, they knew, like, the people's playbook. They knew exactly what the people were going to run, and they will call the plays for what was going to go on. Like, and you will see on the film that the play that we practiced the most, and we knew it was the team's best play, just one player would miss it. Like, he will come off his read a little too quick. Like, if he's reading 2 players, he would come off the first read too much and go to the second guy too fast, because he was, like, scared of something else happening.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing. I don't think it was the lack of coaching or the lack of, like, performance that we can have against other teams. I think it was a lack of confidence more. And most people didn't believe in that they can get done what they should be doing. And when you're not confident, you're not going to have the best game.
How do you fix that? Confidence is such a thing you need to. It's easier to gain confidence with success.
Yes.
Right? I mean, so.
And that's really what it is. You gain it with success and beating teams that you're not supposed to be, and beating teams that you're supposed to beat. And when you're the underdog, if you go out there and you fight with one of the best teams, and you just happen to come out and be beating that team by 1 point at the end of the game, that's going to build confidence, because they're going to start believing that we can do this. We can do this. And when you go out there, like me as a corner, when you go out there and that first pass breakup or that first interception or something like that, or that first tackle of that game, I'm just like, I'm better than this kid, and I'm going to beat this kid all night.
Right.
And that's just how it has to go. Everybody from the corner to corner have to believe that. And once you believe that you can really beat the guy in front of you, no matter what his accolades are, no matter what everything is, you'll be successful.
Well, we got a lot of questions I'm not getting to, but I have to keep coming up with ones I want to ask. Okay, I loved your pick sixes. If you're a fan watching, I mean, those are golden moments. And probably in a game of football, that's as exciting as it gets when you all of a sudden the game's going one direction and it's going to the other one right away. You did one as I think you picked Denard for your first one.
Yeah.
Can you, in your mind, do you go through every one of those and you remember every step you took in those, or are they just all blurs to this, or is it just a reaction?
It's really just a reaction. And when I get the ball, I tend to black out, and I never come back to focus until I turn around and I see my team running towards me.
Yeah.
So majority of the time is I know what I'm doing during the play, and then I'm thinking in my head like, this guy's not going to throw this ball. He's not going to throw this ball. He see me right here in perfect position. And then they just sometimes tend to, I think the majority of the time is when the pressure hits home.
Yeah.
Pressure hits home, he lose sight of me because I'm not the tallest corner around. He tend to lose sight of me, and they just throw a ball they really don't want to, and then I tend to catch them and just run. Majority of the time I'm just running. There's nothing too special. I'm just running down the sideline, and my team is usually clearing it out for me. And then when I come back into life from blacking out, it's 6 points.
And then the next one, but as a freshman, I think it was your next week, you get one against Michigan State. I think you're still the only guy in Purdue football history to do it in back-to-back weeks. But that happened. Now that was a short run. But so you have time? It's one of my favorite pictures is of you getting in the end zone, and I think Purdue Pete's off in the corner, kind of. Again, not having enough time to react. You don't have enough time to even hot dog it. It's going down the end. It just happens.
Yeah, it all just happened. And that play actually, that's why Coach Anarumo, he knew exactly.
Who's the Michigan State quarterback? I'm drawing a blank.
Kirk Cousins.
Oh, Kirk was. Okay, all right. So he tell us the story of how that got drawn up.
On the first third down of the game, we brought Armando Harris in, and we knew if we brought a freshman corner in, it was a third and short. They was going to throw the front side slant to the field. And Coach Hay told me to debate like I was playing on my guy. Even though we was in man coverage, I was in man coverage on the slot. He told me to bait the quarterback, and if I looked at him and I saw him looking outside, just take off running and go grab the ball.
And it was there.
Yeah, it was there.
So what'd you say to Lou when you got on the sideline? Did you just tell him thank you for being right?
I just ran the chest bump with him. He always and the thing is, once the coach wants to play, like sometimes coaches call plays out and they're right, and sometimes they call that play out and it's wrong. So you never want to give up the play that they call out right.
Yeah.
So if I didn't grab that ball, I probably would have been in trouble, but I got it.
Yeah, those are some, and really to be able to do it 4 times is amazing. We were all waiting for that 5th one. Did that get to you? Where, again, it's got to be a matter of happenstance to some extent. You got to be in the right situation to have it happen.
Yeah.
Did you have any time this year where you had a situation where you figure you had it snuffed out that it might be able to happen again? Was there any golden moment this year, or is it just not never really come? I can't think. Your pick against Indiana, the last one, it's a great picture because you're the receiver on that, but you just didn't have. There was no way to go. You were going to go the distance on that one.
I had my 5th one, and I messed up. I knew against Notre Dame that if he came out to an ace like set with 2 wide receivers wide, tight ends attached to the line, and he was in shotgun, that if I show a cover 3 look, like an off coverage, he's going to check the 10-yard out.
Yeah.
And he did.
I love that whole description.
Yeah.
But anyways.
And I played it.
Where were you?
I was to the field side.
Okay.
I was to the field, and he checked the 10-yard out to me, and I jumped it, and I had it in my hands, and I dropped it, and it was touchdown.
Well, that's right. Now I do remember.
Yeah, I had it. I had it for the 6, and I knew exactly what I was doing. Every game I go into, I always know the play I'm going to get an interception on.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Wow.
Fascinating.
That's
I want to get to a couple NFL questions, but go ahead, Stacey.
Are we still going? Because
Yeah.
it's like 45.
That's all right.
We're stretching your segment out.
We're buying them we'll take them to Hunter's Pub after we're done. So, or Triple R's. Go ahead, Stacey. We have a couple more.
Did you end up then talking and figuring out how many your interceptions were with your mom? Did you break it down?
I
So you
never
had
did.
12, right? No, 13. I
Right.
always get that wrong. I know. 13. 2 and 1. We know that at least.
I didn't have my away game. She never was at the away games.
Oh, she wasn't in Bloomington.
But
Oh.
from the beginning, like of my career, all my interceptions were there, like at home, when she was there, and I think it was still all home games. I think all the home games I got interceptions, she was there.
That's awesome. So that's good for you. All right, one question on the end, and we had a lot of questions about what you want to do. Where would you like to play? To talk a little bit about that in terms of the league and getting that opportunity and where you see yourself.
I just going into this process and be able to talk about this process is a blessing in disguise. Like I said, I'm not the biggest corner around, and I don't think I'm the most talented guy around either. But just getting this chance to even like think or talk about this is a blessing to me, and I really don't know where I can see myself at any team that would like to have me on that team. And I just go out and I play my heart out, and I play every special team for sure, and I'll be that nickel guy until I can solidify myself as an outside NFL corner.
Well, I think Purdue fans have to say that the effort you gave this year, especially when everybody knew you were injured, but you didn't talk about it, you just went out and played, I think was a tremendous credit to who you are, and I think it'll make a big difference as you talk to NFL folks. Okay, you got one more question. Do you have one more?
Well, I have a bunch, but
Yeah, I know.
that's why we're going to talk after
Yeah, that's
this.
right.
So, do we have any more in here?
No,
Are
go
there
ahead.
any ones?
Yeah.
It's interesting because you weren't a kid necessarily that had NFL dreams. I don't know how many people actually know that. They need to read the story that I wrote about you at the beginning of the year. But so just kind of, it wasn't something where you were a kid and you know, from the minute that you were 5 years old, you're throwing the ball around. This is something that has developed for you over what, 7, 8 years or something like that. So it's a little different. You have a little different kind of
That's
NFL
why,
dream story, I guess.
Yeah, and that's why like the game of football is still like it's one of my biggest priorities. It is my biggest priority, and if you can look at my timeline for my computers and everything at home, that's all I do is watch film. Even the off season, I don't watch every game. I'm still watching film, but that's what I want to do. I'm still new to the game, and I love football. I just like being around it, and yeah, NFL is, ever since I started playing, that has been one of my goals is just to take care of my family and to have a better start of life.
All right. Well, Ricardo, again, thanks so much for your time, and very interesting. And we'll get you back if you get back for the second semester if you're in town when you're taking your last semester. We'd love to have you here as well. So, Stacy, we'll let you guys do your exit interview, which will be on the site next week, and I'll bring Brian and Kyle in. We'll talk a little bit of Boilermaker hoops and a little football as well for our last segment on Gold and Black Live.